He asked me, why do you believe in the supernatural? And I gave him 4 pieces of evidence, and I could have kept going. Order and design demand an intelligent mind, a designer. The universe has a beginning, therefore the universe has a cause. Thirdly, moral absolutes point to a moral lawgiver. Fourthly, rational thinking points to the fact that we do not come from the non-rational, we come from the rational. Those are 4 pieces of evidence I just gave him about why I believe God exists.
Belief in God is not irrational. Watch as Christian pastor Cliffe Knechtle gives his 4 logical arguments for why there must be a God, and make sure to stay tuned to see the backlash from an intellectual atheist student. Leave your thoughts in the comments below and enjoy the video.
Like, to somebody that doesn't have faith, what is a rational justification for it? And I want to clarify, I understand, like, utility in something like that. Like, if it gives somebody purpose or, like, guide somebody through their life. So I'm not really looking for like a utility argument.
Right.
I'm talking more about like in a logical way. Like somebody that doesn't have faith. Like the way I see it is similar to like somebody that might practice some kind of holistic treatment or like holistic medicine or something. That might not technically work. But it might enrich their life still because of like maybe placebo effect or something like that. So like in that sense, they might think like this is a good thing. Other people should try this. But other people that might already know that this thing doesn't work, it's not going to work for them. So why, if somebody doesn't have faith, why should they have faith?
Okay, good. If someone does not have faith, why should they have faith? Everybody has faith. Why? Because you have to answer the question. You have no choice. Why am I valuable? Why is he valuable? Why is she valuable? And however you answer that question, you can't prove it.
Well, I don't think anyone has, and like, I think, well, the thing with faith is we all have faith to some extent. Like we all have faith in like systems that we set up, but we also have foolproofs to these systems that sometimes fail, but we try to construct these things in a way that like, we acknowledge that there could be shortcomings here. Whereas like a faith in a God that we have no evidence for is like, it is blind. And that's kind of the point of it.
Come on now. Did you not listen to me answer him? He asked me, why do you believe in the supernatural? And I gave him 4 pieces of evidence and I could have kept going.
I would love to hear them.
Order and design demand an intelligent mind, a designer.
Okay.
The universe has a beginning, therefore the universe has a cause. Okay? What is the best answer to the explanation? Who or what caused this amazingly beautiful ordered universe? Thirdly, moral absolutes point to a moral lawgiver. All right? Fourthly, rational thinking points to the fact that we do not come from the non-rational, we come from the rational. Reason does not come from non-reason. This brick has no ability to produce rational thought. All right? Those are 4 pieces of evidence I just gave him about why I believe God exists.
I guess, to narrow my point a little bit, the question of God is a tough one because I can't disprove it and I don't have any strong feelings on the matter. I'm more so talking about a specific, like a Christian God. I heard your partner talk earlier about, it was honestly, to me it kind of came off as not the word, I guess, a little rhetorically dishonest in the way that he loaded words such as like historical document, bringing up things like footnotes. I mean, there are communities in America today that think leprechauns exist, and like when we think about a time where there is bad accounting for things, they're like, it's basically one person's writing. Word probably spreads a lot, like pretty quickly, of things that aren't true. People think like witches are real, burn people. Right. So we're putting a lot of faith.
Keep going. I'm listening.
In faulty evidence and a book that has in its best interest to convince people. And I'm supposed to like immediately believe this in this book. And he was saying that it was unprecedented how there was such a big surge in Christian followers, right? That like would go to strengthen the validity of Christianity. But I don't know why you can't just hold the same.
That was not his point.
Well, the point was that like something would have had to catalyze that. Something that would have to happen.
Yeah, there was a catalyst. Something happened. That all of a sudden, thousands of Jews put their faith in Christ. And I listened to him closely because I'm with you. I don't want any verbal gains. He said, what is the most reasonable explanation of this explosion of Jews putting their faith in Jesus?
Yeah.
That's all he said. So you have a problem with that?
Yeah, well, I
What's
have
the
a
problem?
problem with the insinuation that the most reasonable explanation is a supernatural one. I think it's entirely possible that, in the same way that any philosophical movement throughout time rises, like the Enlightenment or something, where a particular way of thinking becomes popular because maybe there's like a piece of literature that comes out at the time,
Yes.
a piece of art that might sway people in one direction or another.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that it has to be like born of a supernatural thing, and I don't know why you can't hold the same candle to something like Islam. Like, if you were to ask,
do.
well, right. So why is Christianity more valid than something like Islam? Why should I believe in Christianity over another Abrahamic religion or
Well,
a
very
religion
simple.
that's not Abrahamic?
Because you read the Quran, you ask yourself, does the evidence of the way Muhammad lived, treated people, the evidence of what he taught, the evidence of how he died and what happened after his death, does that point to Muhammad being reliable? And I would say in some senses, yes. I certainly give alms to the poor that Muhammad teaches. But when you look at Jesus Christ and see that he's sinless, he taught the Sermon on the Mount, amazing ethical teachings. He dies forgiving his enemies, and then he rises from the dead. The grave of Muhammad is full. The grave of Jesus Christ is empty. It's his historical resurrection from the dead that sets Christ apart as different.
Okay.
And I would argue more reliable. If I die and rise from the dead, I have a hunch you'll listen very carefully to all I have to say. I certainly will do that for you. You die and rise from the dead, I will listen very carefully to what you have to say.
Right. I would say if I were to, I have to be wary of my own ignorance in a lot of this because
So do I.
You are obviously more knowledgeable in the minutia of like something like the Bible.
Yeah, but Einstein said I know less than 1% of all there is to know.
Right.
So I obviously know very, very little part of all of reality.
Like,
very
I think
little.
if I were to have a long, fruitful conversation with an Islamic scholar, I think
Yeah.
I could be swayed in that direction as well. I think there's a big factor here where you are probably very well read in the Bible, probably very well read in like scholarly articles or like surrounding this topic. And I think that like from that, there probably comes an indirect bias against like other kinds of information that might be brought forth.
Okay, fine.
What? Yeah.
Then all you got to do is read the Quran for yourself. Don't listen to my interpretation of it.
Yeah.
You read it for yourself, and then you read the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you decide, Muhammad or Jesus, or neither.
I think neither is probably the more logical approach. Simply
Good. I'm so glad you're so logical. So what's the answer that you would give to the question, who or what are you living for, and what's the evidence, this overwhelming evidence that whatever it is you live for and believe in is true?
what I live for and believe in. What I live for is like I have things that I'm passionate about and that provides value and purpose to my life. I don't think that there necessarily has to be like a higher power creator that's giving us inherent value.
What do you
me
live
to
for,
enjoy
and what's the
life.
evidence that it's reliable?
What do I live for?
Yeah, what are you living for?
I was born and I enjoy the life that I was given, and so I continue to live. And the struggles that I face and the things that I experience that I enjoy give me reason to want to continue going that way. And I don't need like a higher power to look towards to motivate me towards something else. And anyway, like I would say,
so that
the higher
means
power in
you're
my
living for
hierarchical
yourself.
structure- Yeah.
You live for yourself. What's the evidence that you are more reliable than Jesus Christ?
The evidence that I'm more reliable than Jesus Christ is like we have to go off of our own. It's kind of presuppositionalism where like I know I exist and I can perceive things, and I understand that like we can like break that down at a philosophical level and
We
like
sure can.
well, you don't exactly know that,
Right.
but I do know it better than something that I never witnessed
Right.
and like never.
Good, and I know
there's
I
no
exist.
actual like.
I know
like,
I
hard
exist.
evidence.
But guess what? I'm a very fickle, very finite person.
I agree, and I don't think God.
When I
needs
look
to
at
exist
Jesus
to know that.
Christ, I see an amazing standard of ethics he teaches, and then he lives up to that standard in a way that I've tried but have failed. I have failed at it. I've tried really hard,
Yeah.
and I've blown it. I am a sinner. Christ didn't sin. That's why to trust him is why.
I think we all construct a higher power in our lives, regardless of whether or not we believe in a God. I think we can all strive for something better. I think we have our own models. We can all strive for something better. I think literature is a good example of this. Like when we create like literary characters, these are things that teach us about ourselves and expand our consciousness. I don't think there necessarily needs to be a Jesus Christ figure. Jesus Christ, I think I see him more as a literary kind of character that we can like learn from, but I don't think he needs to be as idealized in reality as he has been for it to be valuable. And I think the thing with like a higher power, we all construct that in our life. A higher power for somebody might be like their passion for a certain thing that gives them purpose, and that's their higher power. And that God fulfills that role for a lot of other people. But I just don't think that that alone is like proof of anything. I think that's just proof that we as humans have an innate desire to strive towards something, and God was created to fulfill that void in the human need, in that need that humans have.
And it's fascinating because about 8% of the world is atheistic, and that's going to decrease, Pew Research shows and sociologists claim, in the coming years. And Christianity and Islam are spiking. In the next few years, it's supposed to be 65% of the US is Christian and Islam. In the world, Christianity is by far and away the largest worldview, but Islam is catching it. And so through immigration and other ways, this nation will grow greatly in Christianity as well as Islam. So I always struggle with why so many have said, like even John Lennon in 1966, even Newsweek magazine back in the 60s talked about, even Nietzsche said, God is going to die, God is in the process of dying, and as we get more scientific and technological and smarter, everybody's just going to become atheistic, religion will go away. Why has that not occurred? And it might be, it might be, no, it's not.
There is the
world is becoming much more religious than secular. That is proven statistically.
But what do you mean by religious? Because you guys seem to have a very interesting definition of religion, where like somebody is not technically Christian if they're not following the values of somebody like Jesus Christ. How can we even say that this person is like actually religious, or are they just doing it because it was part of their like upbringing or something?
Yeah.
And I think I am kind of forced to believe the statistics you're saying, because I don't want to be that guy that pulls the phone out in the middle of the conversation and looks it up. But
I'll just say my sources: Pew Research and the Washington Times and the New York Times.
The interesting part of that, though, is I'd have to actually read that, because there's a lot of context that usually goes into the analysis of data. You can't look at raw data. There's often a lot of context.
Well, bro, just look at it. Excuse me for interrupting. Just look at India. It's all Hindu. It's not growing in atheism. Atheism is 65% of atheists are white male.
Yeah.
And atheism, every single atheistic conference is in the West.
Yeah.
You go to Africa, you go to Latin America, you go to China, you go to Taiwan, you go to South Korea, you find me some atheists.
Right.
Good luck.
But if anything,
atheism is not spreading. Atheists try and convert more people than any other religion I know.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm debating an atheist, they are strongly trying to convert me, more so than I'm trying to convert them, which I find is hilarious, because if no God exists, and if religion, especially Christianity, is not deleterious and harmful to the human race, why are they trying so hard to convert me? And specifically to your point, you keep getting at this idea of a higher power, and let's just all kind of agree on a higher power if it works for you. Look, I'm in full agreement with that. But the whole thing that we're talking about out here is, don't come to Christianity if it works for you. Come to Christianity if it is the truth, and if it's not the truth based off of evidence, discard it. Live by humanistic values, which are the fumes of the Judeo-Christian faith, which I bet you are probably living out of. So you are probably living as a Christian, but rejecting Christianity.
Like, it's just basic morals that like if you look at the utility of why something like the Bible would be created, it would be to reflect the already existing human morals of the society at the time. I also think what you said earlier oddly kind of proved my point for me, where you were talking about countries in the world that are growing in their religious fervor.
Yes, it's cool.
These are part of the world that are less developed. Like, these are parts of the world that like are
China. China has over 100 million. I'm pretty sure technology and science in China is growing rather rapidly. And the intellectuals themselves, it's fascinating you go here, because there was a group of intellectuals. So I just had a little caffeine. Am I speaking too loudly? I'm going to bring it down.
What's the per capita GDP in a place like China, though?
China, but the problem, bro, the problem right now is you're trying to equate atheism and scientific knowledge together, and all other religions as the IQ is lower, and it's just part of slavish societies. First of all, that is tremendously elitist and tremendously offensive to those who are religious. And secondly, any type of intellectual, cumulatively, I'm talking about cumulative studies, show that Christians and atheists have the same level of IQ, and specifically Anglicans, oddly enough, that denomination has a higher level of IQ than atheists in the typical Christian denomination.
Interesting that you talk about IQ. I think it's a little bit of a straw man. I didn't mention it.
Okay, that's not where you're going?
Well, what I was specifically talking about was developing countries where there is less resources for education, meaning that they're like people that might have higher IQ might instead of be going to like a college or something, might be going to a Quran study class or something, where the whole country is based upon religion and it's ingrained into their law. And I think you say China in jest, but yes, China is a less developed country. I mean, the wealth inequality in a place like China, it spits in the face of even America. It's unreal. Most of China is rural, and in those places, these people don't have good access to education. Same in places like India. These places that you talk about where religious fervor is growing are literally in places where people have less access to education.
Stalin himself said this. If Christianity, one of the main pillars of American society, is swept away, that country will fall apart. And the growth of secularism in this country, if it continues to grow, even though statistically, fortunately, it will not, like I stated, this place will fall in on itself. Because you absolutely have to have moral standards and you have to have an objective purpose in life. Because on this campus, why is it 50% clinical anxiety? Why is there 25% high depression? Why are suicide rates skyrocketing? Why are 54% of marriages divorcing? It has a lot to do with
the divorce rates.
What am I living for? And why am I entering a relationship that I'm supposed to be committed to?
I'm willing to adapt to information. If compelling evidence of a Christian God were to come out, I would. That would be amazing. That'd be great.
Well, and that's you're straw manning us, because we're not saying this is the absolute. If somehow evidence came out and there was an ossuary and we found Jesus Christ's bones, I would have to stop believing in Christ because he wasn't raised from the dead. So it's a little presumptuous and quasi-offensive, and I'm not that offended, for you to say, we have this objective authoritarian truth and we are not budging on it. But you over here, hey, I'm waiting for more, I'm discovering things, and this is me. Is that not the greatest assertion and the greatest form of spiritual dogmatism in terms of what you claim to be the truth? I think it is. You're worshiping the search.